Would you like to enjoy reading? Can you actually learn to be a person who enjoys reading, or is it sort of something that's innate in a person? Whether you're a person who wants to read more, you want the knowledge, you want the stories and the satisfaction of reading the great works that are out there in this wide world, or you're a person who used to read or has got into a reading slump and is trying to get back their zip when it comes to enjoying reading, this video is just for you. Save it. Because I'm going to share with you 5 small tips, the third of which is the most important. And if you follow these tips, I can promise you, if you do it consistently, you will eventually find yourself enjoying reading and looking forward to your time with a book. So having said that, let's dig into these 5 tips. Now, before you jump on to the third tip, which I've said is most important, the first 2 tips are crucial foundations for getting the most out of the third. So, the first tip is to be present when you read. To have your attention as fully focused as possible on the activity of reading. Now I'm going to read you a quote from Alexander Pope, which has nothing to do with reading and at the same time, everything to do with it. As I read it to start with, see if you can tell where I'm going, and maybe you'll be wondering why on earth I've used this quote, but it will become apparent. So, I've took my bookmark out, that was silly. Alexander Pope is actually talking about bravery in a hero. See if you can see how this relates to reading. Bravery of the true hero is courage manifesting itself in every limb, while in its correspondent virtue in the mock hero, that courage is all collected into the face. Do you understand what he's saying? And do you understand how it relates to reading? You might think it's got nothing to do with reading. Well, in many respects, that's true, but the principle has. A truly brave person, he says, doesn't just put on a front like the person who pretends to be brave and just has it in their face. It says the truly brave person is courageous in all their limbs. In other words, their entire being is focused to standing against something on principle. That means this person's morals, their code of conduct, the standards they believe are true and good, are so focused in all departments of their mind that when something conflicts with them, they will stand against it even if it's a threat, even if it could do them harm. So people, for instance, were put into the concentration camps who refused to say Heil Hitler. Some were put there because they refused to go to war, because their standards and their beliefs went against that. It wasn't just a little bit of an idea, it was all of their inward person stood for that one standard. And so in what Pope is saying, it was in every limb of them. Yes, it was scary, but they could stand against it. That was courage. Now, the faux courageous person, they can put it all on in their face and hope that the situation will go away and they'll call the bluff of someone, but that's not real courage. Now, take the principle and put it into reading. The person who truly enjoys reading has all of their limbs or all of their being focused on the act of reading when they read. They get completely in with the book. They're present. The person who wants to read but doesn't enjoy, normally it comes from the fact that they've only got a single part for reading, as in it's in their face. I would like to know what's in the books. I would like to get enjoyment from it. But while they're reading, it's not all of them that's present. They're thinking, oh, I've got to do the washing, or there's bills to be paid. What am I going to do at work tomorrow? The garden's, looking a bit tatty. It's a beautiful day outside. I could be down the beach. Oh, if instead of reading this, maybe I could go to the beach. Or maybe you could be daydreaming about leaving your 9 to 5 and starting a brand new job. Or maybe you want something funny from a YouTube short or an Instagram reel, whatever it may be. Can you see, if you've got all those bits going off, you can't focus entirely on what you're reading. And if you start daydreaming, the book is getting in the way of something you're finding exciting, and that will immediately mean you can't enjoy it. It gets in the way. Think of when you were at school, dinner break is coming up, you're in English, they're reading a book, and you're thinking, we're going to go here during dinner break, we're going to do that, and I can't wait to play soccer or football at the end of school with my friends, or I'm going to go and do this party and everything. And you're so excited about those things that actually the book you're reading in class is a hindrance. Whereas if you were to just say, I'm going to be present, by the way, this gives you enjoyment in all facets of life. If you just say, well, right now I'm in class. So since we're going to read this book, I'm going to put all things to one side and just listen to this book. Do you know, if you were taught to do that, you would be a person who enjoys reading, because the stories and the information would begin to take over you. Just a little point proof of this, and this is all I'm going to say, is a message I got on Instagram from someone called Caleb, and I thought I'd share just a small comment. It was about reading 10 pages a day rather than trying to, get through a whole book in one sitting. And Caleb said, I took your advice on reading just 10 pages per day, slowly, and I'd always heard great things about Bleak House, so I bought a cheap copy from a bookstore thinking I'd read it no matter what in 99 days. That is 990 pages divided by 10. Your video showing how old books are not difficult to read if you pay attention and have patience encouraged me. I loved Bleak House and read it in 17 days. And we'll stop there. I think that speaks for itself. Because Caleb only had 10 pages to focus on, he could focus on them. He could be present for that moment with all his limbs and all his attention, as Alexander Pope would say of the courageous person. And look what happened. It drew him in so deeply that it then became an enjoyable experience, an effortless one. So that was the first point. Be present when you read. Don't think of anything else. Just say, for the time I'm reading, I'm just going to think about this story. The second tip to becoming a person who enjoys reading is a well-known one, and it should be obvious, but it's one we don't abide by, and it is switch off your devices. If you're going to be present to read, you need not to be distracted. So turn the telly off. Turn your phone off, as in either put your phone in a drawer in another room or switch airplane mode on. If you're only reading for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can say, look, I can do everything else afterwards. For these 15 minutes, I'm just going to do that. It's only 15 minutes. It'll soon be gone. And I'm going to switch off the internet connection. And that's for a very simple reason. We are all so easily distracted. Now, I haven't got the science right in front of me, but there is science done, and maybe I could do another video about this, that we take a certain amount of time to get focused in on something we're reading. And as soon as we're distracted and we pick up a message and we turn to read that, it disrupts our thinking, and it now takes another, I don't know, for argument's sake, 10 minutes to get your focus again on your book. And then someone sends you a video clip. So you look at that, that's funny, and you just swipe a few more times. And then you try to read more. You've distracted yourself, and now you've got to get another 10 minutes for your mind to settle in and focus. This is why we sometimes think, I'm not enjoying something I'm doing. I'm not enjoying this. This could even be work. It's because your mind was focused and was beginning to get into it and then was distracted. And so when you come back, it's got to sort itself out again. It has to settle in. It's effort for it to reconcentrate. And we interpret the feelings of permanently trying to get our focus because we're permanently allowing ourselves to be distracted. We interpret that as not enjoying something. It does make us uncomfortable. So when you're going to read, remember, you're going to be present. Everything else is going to be done. It's still going to be there for you afterwards. It can wait. I'm just going to read for 10 minutes and I'm going to switch off anything that will be a distraction. Because if something distracts me, my brain will have to refocus itself. And that will feel like I'm not enjoying it. And I'll think, oh, I'm not a reader, or this book must be a boring one. It's not that. It's because you will not let your brain rest. Let it just relax into one thing and it will reward you ever so well. The third tip to teaching yourself to enjoy reading is by far and away the most powerful one. And it is this: immerse yourself in what you are reading. Now, this is where tip 1 comes in. If you are present, if you are saying, I am only focusing on this for 10, 15, half an hour, whatever time period you set, you will then be allowed to immerse into the book. Now, why immersion is so good, and we're going to do a little test in a minute. Why immersion is so good is the difference between these two things. Imagine it's a really hot day. You're sweltering, and there's nothing you can do to cool off. And so you imagine what it would be like to be in some beautiful lagoon, some shady glade, all tinted green from the leaves of the trees, and there's a great pool with a waterfall at the back of it. And if you could just go into it, you can imagine how the water would just rise. You know how you feel the top of the water climb up your body as you sink in, and you feel how cool it would be. And also you feel how much peace that would be. That's one thing, but how about you actually went and got into a pool? How about you went to a beach if it was near you, and you actually let yourself just sink into the water? That's the difference between letting yourself get immersed in a book and trying to read a book. You see, the biggest mistake most people make in reading is they are trying to read so that they have read. I've said this in another video about advice for slow readers. We get a book, Alexander Pope, oh, he must have lots to say. We start reading, and then we start going, how far to go, how far to go, how far to go? I want to have read it so I know it all, and it's in there, and then I can read the next one. And the problem with that is you're not immersed now in reading. What you're doing is dreaming of the lagoon rather than getting into the pool. You're imagining what I could know if I'd finished reading this. Well, you're never going to enjoy something if you are hurrying towards its finish. It's a bit like how many of you do not like the journey? When you go to a destination, the journey is hard work. Do you know why that is? Most often it's because we're so focused in our minds on the destination and what we're going to do when we're there, that the journey is something in the way. It's something to be got rid of. Whereas, if you were to say, do you know what? This journey is happening anyway. I'm going to enjoy the journey. I'm going to pay attention to the sights that go by. Imagine setting off 2 hours early on your journey so that if a landmark caught your eye, you could go over there and have a quick look. How much more enjoyment would you have? If you want to enjoy reading, enjoy the journey. Immerse yourself in that book. So for the 10 minutes or 15 minutes you've set aside each day, you're not thinking, how much can I get through? You read at your normal speed. So if you are a quick reader, you don't need to slow down. But what you don't do is try to hurry it. If you're a slow reader, don't try to read faster. Just let the words pull up on you like the surface of the water as you sink through it. You can feel that line of coolness coming up you. Let the words roll over you. Be in the book. If I could say to you, I'll give you the information to a history book, 1,000 pages long, about the War of the Roses, and I'll give it you today. You might think that's good. How about if I offered you, though, or every day for 15 minutes, I could send you back in time so that you could actually watch each step, so you could experience. That's the difference between rushing to have read the book as opposed to enjoying reading the book. Now, I said there'd be a little test. I'm going to put on the screen now a piece of literature, and we're just going to read it, and we're going to let ourselves fall into the words, to just enjoy the words. Now, this is actually a poem, but this would work with a book as well, just ordinary prose. But let the words roll over. Allow yourself to immerse in this. The poem is called If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, Or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build 'em up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose, and start at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Now, if you were present, fully focused on those words as we read through them, and you immersed yourself, you let the words come over you, you looked at them, you heard them, you understood them, you felt them, tell me in the comments down below how much you enjoyed that poem. Do you see? You can enjoy reading. You can learn to enjoy reading. In fact, there's a lesson in here about reading if we just change some words. Remember that bit where he said, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thinking your aim. How about with books? If you can read and not make reading your aim. Too many people, instead of immersing themselves, instead of letting themselves fall into the book and just enjoy it, they read because they want to have read. To say, I finished the works of Alexander Pope. Now I've got all this knowledge. I've finished the works of Shakespeare. I've read every Agatha Christie. Don't read for reading's sake. You have to read to enjoy it. And then you will enjoy reading. So that was point number 3. Allow yourself to fall into the book. Immerse yourself as in a cool pool on a hot day. The last 2 tips to help you enjoy reading are really, really simple. Tip number 4 is listen to audiobooks. Audiobooks are great. Sometimes we struggle because maybe we're not overly used to reading a lot. But you'll always enjoy a story. We all love stories. Our whole lives are stories. A joke is a story in short. So if you're struggling to actually just get into reading, how about learning to enjoy the story? Just get an audiobook. When you go to bed, put it on and let a chapter go by or 2. And again, using the other bits of advice, be present. Don't put an audiobook on and then have a chat with whoever's with you in bed. Don't put an audiobook on and start thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. Say, I'm going to be here now. And I'm going to let the images and the words of the audiobook roll over me and I'm going to sink into it. I'm going to drift into that world. If you do that for just 1 chapter a night, you will begin to love the stories and it will wake up your desire, a greater desire to learn more stories or read more non-fiction if that's your thing. And that will lead you eventually to picking up a book and doing it for yourself. And that will help you to enjoy reading. So it's a simple one. If you're struggling with actually physically reading, take an audiobook to bed and just spend some time there, being present and immersing yourself in it. Also, switch off your device. It will help you get to sleep better as well. The 5th tip is a simple one, and it's simply this. Read something you're interested in, a topic or a genre that you know you enjoy. Obviously, this channel is all about the classics, and you might want to get into the classics, but if you find reading not that easy, you're not enjoying it as much, or you've got into a reading slump, how about just picking some books which focus on topics you like? So if you like sci-fi, read sci-fi books. If it's murder mystery, read them. If it's historical fiction, read them. If it's chick lit, read them. Whatever it may be, if you know you enjoy those kind of stories, just pick those books first. Follow the other tips to build up your enjoyment of reading, and then if you want to branch out from there, by all means do that. In fact, a video you should probably look at is my video called How to Build Your Own Classics Library. I'll put the link down below. Now, it doesn't have to be classics. The principles in there will really help you get going and find books that you're definitely going to enjoy. Briefly recapping then, the 5 tips to teach you how to enjoy reading are: be present when you read. You need to switch off all other thoughts. Switch off anything that can distract you, because when you're distracted, it takes your mind quite a while to get refocused, and we interpret that as not enjoying something, whereas actually all it is the brain can't keep jumping backwards and forwards. It will get tired out. The third is to let the story envelop you, or for you to immerse yourself into its pages. You're not just reading, you're going to take pleasure, or try to take pleasure in the actual words that you're reading, the actual images being described, the conversations being had, the knowledge that's being passed on to you from a book. Fourth, listen to audiobooks. Switch the light off, turn your phone off, put an audiobook on, and that can just give you enough enjoyment of a story to grow your enjoyment in stories, which will lead to enjoyment in books. And last of all, go for books from topics that interest you. Focus on the things, don't focus on what you should read, because as we've learned, requoting If, don't read for reading's sake, with reading as your aim. Rather, read because you're going to learn to enjoy it. And that will give you so much more in your life. Now, one last thing I need to say is that if you appreciate videos like this, which do take some time, and you'd like to support my channel, there's a way you can do it. I have a Patreon membership site where you can go and sign up to be my Patreon per month. And either you can do that just to support the channel, but if you do sign up, you will get exclusive content as well. In fact, every month I read one particular book, sometimes 2, and the whole community can read along as well. After that, we'll have a Zoom discussion. I make some videos about my understanding of the books, going a bit in depth into studying the first chapter and then in depth into reviewing the whole book. But the conversations we have on Zoom are fantastic. Now, if that sounds like something you'd like to do, come along and do it. And I look forward to seeing you over there. Until the next time I see you, I wish you joy in whatever you read.